the schus of our learning. We should have the basic English. Be a panacea. For Shlema, let's begin Mem Amid Beis on the bottom. It says, Tiny Kavaseder Rabbi Yochanan. About 5 lines from the bottom. Yeah, we had a machlekes Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Lazar about redeeming shvius. So produce gets the holiness, the sanctity of Shemitah. Then you have to take it out. If you have to take it out of the house at a certain point, and then there's also a lot of restrictions on that. You can't sell it. You can only use it for actual food. If you then exchange it for something else, then what you exchange it for will have that sanctity. But how does that exchange work? So that was a machlekes Rabbi Lazar and Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Lazar said only if it's exchanged by a way of sale. If there's another person there that buys it from you, then that sanctity will go open. Rabbi Yochanan said, "Bein derech chilul, you don't need another person there. It doesn't have to be a sale. You can just designate it. You say that this new produce, this new money or other produce, or whatever it is, will be exchanged for the original Shemitah produce." Okay. So let's see. Yesterday we did the tiny kavasei, the Rabbi Lazar, and we saw that by quoting a brisa that said several times "lakach mimenu," which means that he bought it, which means that was the way of exchanging the sanctity. It was only by way of lakach, of purchase. Now we have tiny kavasei Rabbi Yochanan echad shvius v'echad ma'aser sheni miskalan al behima chayavoid. Ben Chaim Ben Shkuten de Brab Meir, but Chamer Mal Shkuten Miskalen Al Chainin Miskalen Xershem Yigadol Behem Mehem Adar. There's the story here that's happening, and then there's the point that we're bringing it. We're just bringing that there's a word that's being used here, Miskalen, that you could redeem Ma'aser Sheni and Shemitah and Shvius produce by way of chilul, by way of just designating other money and saying that the sanctity of this should go on that. And it doesn't say lakach, doesn't say that it has to be a purchase. That's a raya to Rabbi Yochanan. Now we have to go through what exactly was said here.
That would mean just with words,
yeah,
saying this is no longer sanctified.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the sanctity from this should go on this. Well, what's happening here is that Shemitah produce and Ma'aser Sheni, which needs to go to Yerushalayim, could be exchanged for animals. Animals is also food. If it's shchuten, if it's shechted, it's food. So behema chaya ba'oid. If it's shechted, it's food. However, Rabbi Meir holds even if it's alive. Why? Because you're going to shecht it. He holds that's also considered food. The Chacham have a problem with live animals being meiser or shvius. The problem is that you may turn it into like a cattle industry, livestock, and then meanwhile all of this is all sanctified, and it's lasting forever. It's not like years ago they didn't have refrigeration. And they would have to dry it or whatever. But that was basically the end of your holy money. You shechted the animal, now you have to finish it within the next few days, or else it's going to go bad, unless you preserved it somehow. But if you have livestock, you could have it's going to go on forever. And meanwhile, all of it is consecrated. That's a huge problem. So the sages said that ein mischal on live. If it's alive, because there's a gzeirushem yigadol behem adarm, you may turn it into flocks of this, and then you're going to lose track, and it's consecrated, it has certain sanctities to it. It becomes problematic. Okay, that's what's happening here. But the point was of bringing this is that we use the word chilul. Amar Rava. Rava says machlekes bezucharim. This discussion between Rameh and the Chachamim, if live animals could be exchanged for Ma'aser Sheni, and Shvius. By the way, I'm avoiding one difficult issue because the Gemara is going to discuss it later. It's really Meiser Sheni needs to be money. You can't exchange it for other food products. It has to go on to money. We'll see later what's happening. So he says the machlekes here is about male animals. That there is an opinion that holds that if it's alive, it can still be exchanged. It could get the sanctity of shvius. However, for female animals, those are the ones that are going to give birth. So those are more problematic, and no one holds that you can exchange consecrated, sanctified Meiser Sheni for shvius with female live animals. So this, we just restricted, according to Rava, this machlekes, that it's really only about male animals. Yomer Ravashi goes back to the machlekes Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Elazar. Remember, just to put into perspective, Rabbi Yochanan is an Amora in Eretz Yisrael, and Rabbi Elazar is his chavrusa after Rish Lakish dies. He's a student as well. Rabbi Elazar ben Fidas. He was from Bavel, and he came to learn with Rabbi Yochanan. And they're arguing. Rabbi Yochanan. Yeah, this is when Rabbi Yochanan was not satisfied with as a chavrusa. But he's still, nevertheless, I think he's called Maradar de Yisrael. It was Amri Marab, I think the Gemara says it's Rabbi Elazar ben Fidas. He's a very important person. Yeah, right. Ravashi says that the machlekes between Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Elazar, very nice, is regarding machlekes b'pri-rishon, the actual original produce itself. Aval prisheni divrakol ben derech mekach ben derech chilul. When it comes to the secondary produce, that means once it's exchanged once, then everyone agrees that you can exchange the next one without a purchase, just by designation. So again, Rabbi Elazar held that it needs to be derech mekach. If you're exchanging Shemitah produce, you want to get the sanctity onto something else, it doesn't actually leave the first one. It's Shemitah. But Meiser Sheni will leave the first one and go on to something else. But we're dealing with Shemitah. Shemitah needs to be derech mekach. It needs to be in the way of its tail. Rabbi Yochanan says no, just by designating something else, that will work. Comes along Ravashi, and he says that's only in the first type of, in the first produce. But once it's already been exchanged, whether it was derech chilul or derech mekach, according to Rabbi Elazar, now even Rabbi Elazar will agree that I can do it derech chilul, that I can just designate. It gets diluted. And it gets diluted, I can the severity of the law is not as strict. We go back to the brisa that we quoted yesterday, which was a proof to Rabbi Elazar, where it kept saying, "Lakach beperish shvius basar, lakach dagim, lakach yayin, lakach." It said lakach, and it wasn't just the first case; it was all the way down the line. With every exchange, it said again, lakach, lakach. That means it had to be a purchase. Now you're telling me that it doesn't have to be a purchase. The Gemara explains, I did the tani reisha lakach, tani nami seifa lakach. It was just using the same expression. You're right. It's a little misleading. But because in the initial produce, the original produce, it needed to be in a way of a purchase to get the sanctity over to the next thing. So we continued using that expression even for the next cases, but it didn't have to be that. The supply chain. Right. First one has to be the purchase, and after that, it doesn't matter. Yeah, that's what we said so far. What is it? Yeah. Eisfi Ravina Ravashi. Ravina asks Ravashi a question. We're on page 41. Towards the top. Mishi Yeshle Sela Shel Shviyas. If someone has a coin of Shemitah, that means that it used to be produce, and he exchanged it for a coin. Ubiki Shlikach by Chaluk, but he wants to buy a jacket, a shirt. Kate said, Yasa, what should he do? So Yelach Eitzel Chen V'ni Haragal Etzlai. You should go to a storekeeper that he frequents regularly, he knows the person. He says to him like this. See, he's only allowed to use this money, because it's Shemitah money, to buy food. He can't use it. How to become Shemitah money? Because he exchanged Shemitah produce for his money. So he can't use it to buy a new suit or something. So how does he get rid of he needs to launder to get the Shemitah off the money. How's he going to do this? So he says, he goes to this storekeeper. He says, Tenli besela payers. I want to buy fruits. But nice and light. He gives him the coin. And then he tells him, you can keep the fruits. I don't need the fruits. Now, the fruits are sanctified with Shemitah. But it's not a problem for fruits because you're just going to eat them. You're not going to burn them or, they're fine. He's just going to eat them. He says, here, it's a gift. Go eat them. And then the storekeeper says, hey, and you can keep the coin as well. So the storekeeper's left with his fruits. The purchaser is left with his coin, and the coin has just been released from its status. And then he can buy whatever he wants. Okay. Now, there's a bit of a problem here. Not the whole money laundering thing. It's not that. But there's another problem. The problem is that why did he need to go through this whole thing? According to Ravashi, obviously we're dealing with perisheni, not the original produce that grew on Shemitah. It's already a coin. And he had to go through this process of buying produce from someone to get the sanctity of. He could have just designated some fruits in his house. He didn't need another person there. He could have done this without a purchase. You don't have to involve anyone. Ravashi says, so that's a problem. We have to adjust this. Machlokes beprisheni. The machlokes Rabbi Lazar and Rabbi Yochanan is not about the first produce. It's about the second produce. It's already been exchanged once. And now Rabbi Lazar says it still needs to be derech mekach. When it comes to pirishin, even Rabbi Yochanan would agree that it needs to be in a way of a sale, of a purchase. That's going to be a problem because we had a brisa that supported Rabbi Yochanan. And we thought that brisa was talking about the original produce. And Rabbi Yochanan says that you can do it with an exchange, you don't need a purchase. Now, according to Ravashi, it needs to be, everyone agrees, even Rabbi Yochanan agrees, we just made everything stricter. We moved it up one level. That even Rabbi Yochanan agrees that you have to be strict about the original produce that make an exchange, it needs to be with a purchase. The Gemara says, my shvius to my shvius. That brisa before was actually talking about money of shvius. It wasn't talking about, when we said that what can you do with the money of shvius? You can exchange it for livestock, according to Reb Meir. And the Chum said it has to be, it could be meat, but it can't be alive. That's talking about money, not actual Shemitah produce. Because if you don't say that we're dealing with money, Meiser Mamish, you're dealing with the actual produce of Meiser. It says you can't exchange Meiser unless it's money. It has to be minted, coins. So you can't exchange Meiser produce for livestock. You can only exchange it onto a coin. Because the idea was you're supposed to carry it to Yerushalayim. You're supposed to make it lighter on you. You get coins to carry. You take the produce, you exchange it for money, not bills. But produce is too heavy. Yeah. Yeah. The problem is here was also meat. Chachamim held that it can't be alive. So if it's but either way, that's not the issue. The issue is Pasuk says that it needs to be money. Ela Demei Meiser, we're dealing with the money of Meiser, which means it was already exchanged once. So we're dealing with Pre-Sheni. And that by Pre-Sheni is where Rabbi Yochanan says that you can you can redeem it without a purchase. The Messiah, so here also we're dealing with Shemitah. Okay. We're dealing with the money of Shemitah. Now we have the new Mishnah. It has to be actually a minted coin, even a blank that has the value. Somewhere. Surah. That's the Surah. Based on the process. So it's with Tzartak. They didn't have Bitcoin. Okay. Have nothing, just got a trophy. Okay, the Mishnah says, Berishayna hayalulav nitel b'mikdash shiva medina yom echad. Historical Mishnah. Originally, the lulav was 7 days in the Beis Hamikdash, and in Medina, that means the country, possibly including Yerushalayim, it was only 1 day, only the first day. Yeah. The kids, they prepared for Pesach for like months in school. Anyway, by the Seder, sometimes they fall asleep. Okay, the next Seder. Okay, they want to have a Seder every night of Pesach. They want to have a whole spread, it's just the first 2 nights. So that's what would happen here. People would be buying their lulav and esrog, and it was all just for 1 day. That was the whole story. Unless they went to the Beis Hamikdash, which was 7 days, but otherwise, the lulav and esrog was just 1 day. Mishacharav Beis Hamikdash, when the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, history Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai instituted. He was around at the destruction. He was carried out in a coffin. He made believe that he was dead. He was carried out of Yerushalayim when it was under siege. So he instituted Shia Lulav Nitel b'Medina Shiva Zeichel HaMikdash, that we should always take the lulav 7 days in commemoration of the Beis Hamikdash. Another thing, that the day of waving was entirely forbidden, which means like this, that there's a rule that you can't have the new produce until a certain time. Yeah, it's sort of like you can't have the new stuff until you finish the old. But it's not exactly that halacha. You can't have the new produce until the 16th of Nisan. On the 16th of Nisan, there was a carbon that was brought. It was called a carbon Aimer. And once that carbon was brought, then you can start to eat the new grain. Let's say the Beis Hamikdash isn't around and there's no carbon. So then it says ad etzem hayom hazeh, ad haviyachem asay meratenufa. The Gemara says, what is it? Is it ad etzem hayom hazeh or ad haviyachem asay meratenufa? Where it says it depends. If the Beis Hamikdash is around, then it's ad haviyachem asay meratenufa. If there is no Beis Hamikdash, then it's ad etzem hayom hazeh. Then it's until the morning. On the morning of the 16th, officially you should be allowed to eat. The only problem is, we'll take a look. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai made an institution. He made a decree that the entire day is asur. Okay, First of all, Minalan, the Gemara says, Minalan Davdin and Zeichel Migdash. How do you know that you commemorate the base of Migdash? Amar Rabbi Yochanan says, Damakra, Ki Allah Ruchallah, because I will restore your health. Makasecha Erpai, and I will heal your wounds. Will heal your wounds. Num Hashem, says Hashem. Ki Nidcha Karalach, you were called an outcast. Tziyin, this Tziyin. Doire Sheinla, there's no one that seeks it. Doire Sheinla, there's no one that seeks it. Obviously, it needs to be sought. We have to always remember the base of Mikdash. That's why we have a pasuk that tells us that we have to remember the base of Mikdash. Yeah, the obvious question is, why doesn't it say I mean, like the famous psukim, they're quoting from Yirmiyah, this pasuk that no one heard of. I mean, it's obvious by every chuppah they know about. Very common, and then they break the line. The pshat is, I saw this from Rabbi Soloveitchik years ago, that there's two types of commemorating the Beis Hamikdash. One is commemorating its destruction, remembering it as it's destroyed, and one is commemorating it as it's existing. This is commemorating the Beis Hamikdash. We're doing something that we did in the Beis Hamikdash when it was existing. The other way, Yemeshkachei Yerushalayim, is how we remember that the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. We don't want to forget that we need to have it back. So Yemeshkachei Yerushalayim. But here we're looking to do something that we did in the Beis Hamikdash when it was standing. Yeah, it's a different type of memory. Okay, that the day of waving, which is the 16th of Nisan, that entire day, you weren't allowed to eat the new grain. Yeah. It means either bread or beer. I don't know if they could get started on it beforehand. They allowed to get started on it. They definitely couldn't eat it. My time, what's the reason? Listen to this. Why did Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai institute that the whole day was asr, when really the pasuk says ad etzem hayom hazeh, which means the morning, until the morning of the 16th, it's asr. But after the morning, once it comes sunrise, so sunrise or dawn, one of them, it should be permissible. Should be dawn, maybe. Goes like this. Okay, Mehiri Yibana Beis Hamikdash. Very quickly, speedily, the Beis Hamikdash will be rebuilt. Amen. And people will say, Ishtakid, last year, don't you remember? Last year in the morning, we ate the grain, the new grain. Let's go ahead, let's eat the new grain. The people aren't going to know. Last year you didn't have a Beis Hamikdash, so therefore, hey, you're Mizrach Hitter. People won't know you have to wait for the carbon. They'll be so used to this exile type of lifestyle that they won't know that there's a carbon that permits it. And they'll say in the morning it's permissible. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said you have to wait the whole day. Why? Because the Mashiach's going to come, people are going to make a mistake, they're going to eat it. The Gemara says, 1 second. The Ivni Emas. When is the Beis Hamikdash? When is this scenario playing out? When was the Beis Hamikdash built? Let's say the Beis Hamikdash is built the 16th of Nisan in the morning. So it's already hit the Hayir HaMizrah. It was already by the dawn. It was already permissible. You didn't have a Beis Hamikdash at dawn. You're all set. So why are you telling me that there's a problem? It must be that it was built on the 15th. Yeah, construction back then was not like now, 3 years later. No, they built a building, But it's talking about it's coming down from heaven. So yeah. So it was built on the 15th. So on that, which is Pesach. The first day of Pesach, not Erev Pesach. No, the first day. Yeah, that's a question. Rashi asked that question, but he asked it a little differently. So ulahala mechatzei yom lalan district. If the base of Mikdash is built on the 15th of Nisan, so we said that that's going to be problematic because people are going to think that in the 16th of the morning you can already eat the new grain, and it's not so. You have to wait for the Omer. But when would the Omer be brought? In the morning. So why do you have to wait the whole afternoon? Whenever the morning's over, let's assume that the Omer was brought already. We don't assume that it wasn't taken care of. It's sort of like after Pesach, when you're allowed to eat your chametz. They tell you, wait an hour. And maybe the rabbi was lazy and he didn't get his act together until next week to buy the chametz back from the. You don't make those assumptions. You assume that he's on top of it, and then you announce, give an hour to the rabbi to buy it back. So they say give half the day to the Beis Hamikdash to get the Omer brought. But even if you're far away and you don't hear, was the Omer brought, was it not? By Chatzos, you can already eat your new grain. So why are you telling me that the whole day is Aser? They probably brought the Omer and it's already done. Half the day. Gemara says, there's a problem. Problem was that it's taking a little bit longer because the Beis Hamikdash was built the 16th by night, before the morning. Yeah, over here Rashi says, but the Beis Hamikdash isn't built by night. He says, yeah, well, it's coming down from heaven. Maybe it was the 15th, but it was so close to the 16th that you didn't have time to go harvest the grain, so there's a delay. Normally, we say that the Bezdin and the Kayanim are going to take care of the Omer, but over here there's a delay because the Beis Hamikdash was just built and they didn't even harvest the Omer yet. Okay. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Amar, Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai b'shitas Rav Yehuda Amar, Amar min haTorah aser. Yeah, we have another opinion here. Other opinion here is that it's not a decree. There's a contradiction in the pasuk. Pasuk says, "Ad haviyachem esaymer atnufa ad etzem hayom hazeh ad haviyachem esaymer atnufa." Until the essence of this day, until this very day, until the Omer is brought. Now, is it until the day or is it until the Omer is brought? So we learned that until the day meant the morning. Comes along Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, and he says Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai holds that until the day is referring to the night. Therefore, the whole day is Aser. Until this very day, and he holds that it includes the whole day. Until the day, until including, with the hyphen. From until the 16th. That's including the 16th, all the way through. Yeah. Does Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai really hold that? He holds that midday Raisa, the 16th is Aser. If there's no carbon, you have to wait. So from Miflik Palagala, he argues with Rabbi Yehuda. He doesn't agree with Rabbi Yehuda was the one that says this, that it's the whole day. He argues with Rabbi Yehuda. The Tanya, is supposed to be the Tanya. The Tanan, started in the Mishnah. Mishachar Beis Hamikdash Hiskin Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai Sheminef Kula Aser. That Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai instituted that the whole day it's forbidden to eat the new grain. Amalei Rabbi Yehuda said, Balei min haTorah aser. Rabbi Yehuda is not in the generation of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai has the 5 students. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai himself is a student of Hillel. We had that before. He was a student of Hillel. He was the youngest of the students of Hillel. The greatest was Yonasan ben Aziel. And the youngest, the smallest, was Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. His students were the 5 students, including Rabbi Eliezer ben Hurknes and Rabbi Yeshua ben Hanani. Their student and friend was Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva's student is Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda is Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Lai. Yeah. So Rabbi Yehuda, this Rabbi Yehuda, he has an opinion that the whole day is forbidden, and he argues on what was stated in the name of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. He says, what? It says, Rabbi Yehuda is arguing on Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai made on the first opinion that he instituted that it was Asr. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, it's Asr Midayraisa. How could Rabbi Nachman bar Yitzchak come along and say that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai says it's Asr Midayraisa? Rabbi Yehuda says no. Rabbi Yehuda argues on Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai says it's a rabbinic decree, and Rabbi Yehuda says it's biblical. You can't say that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai holds it's biblical. We see it's machlokes. Where it says Rabbi Yehuda the Katai, who suffered midrabanan kamar, v'lay midaraisa kamar. There was no machlokes here. Rabbi Yehuda thought there was a machlokes. He thought that they were saying something different than what he was saying. So he said, no, it's biblical. But they also said that it was biblical. There was really no argument.
They misunderstand each other and they understand the answer to the pain. Okay. Why did they do that? 3 generations. We got wives, 3.
Look at this. Well, Hiskin Kama. What are you telling me? That Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai holds that it's a biblical law. And Rabbi Yehuda thought that he was saying that it's rabbinic. He said it's rabbinic. He said, it says Hiskin. He instituted. The Gemara says, my Hiskin. What does it mean, instituted? Darash v'Hiskin. He taught it from the pasuk and he instituted that. Not that he instituted from his own creativity. He instituted it from his learning in the pasuk. That's why he instituted it. He read the pasuk and he made that announcement. Okay, so according to Reb Nachman bar Yitzchak, this was a biblical law. Rabbi Yehuda argues with Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. That's because he misunderstood Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. And according to the first way of learning this was a rabbinic law. Well, why was it instituted? Because the Beis Hamikdash is going to be rebuilt. People are going to think that they can do it the way they did it last year. And so therefore we redo the way the last year is done. And we have the whole day forbidden. Even if the Beis Hamikdash is built, you only have to wait until Chatzos. As well, yeah, we have a concern that the Beis Hamikdash is going to be rebuilt on the 15th by night, or the 16th, beginning of the 16th. And there won't be time to have the Aimah ready. It's going to be a little delay. Because of that, all through exile, the whole 16th is. Uh-huh. Right. Well, there's limited options of how many days the Beis Hamikdash could be rebuilt. Only 365. Now, one of them is problematic. So that's not very good odds. 1 to 365, right? In the medical things, that's not good odds. It's 1 out of 365 people. I wouldn't risk it. Okay. Yom Tov Rishon Shel Chag Shecholius b'Shabbos. If Sukkot falls out on Shabbos, the first day. So originally the lulav was taken on Shabbos, on the first day. Then it switched. We'll see later. But everyone would bring their lulav to shul from Erev Shabbos. You sort of needed the locker, but I don't know if it would fit there. L'macharas, the following day, mashkimin avan kol echad makar shaloi b'naitlin. Everyone would recognize which lulav was his, and he would take the lulav, even on Shabbos. Because the sages said that you can't take someone else's lulav, even if he gives you permission. It has to be given to you as a gift. You can't. No. Shofar is the sound. Yeah. What happens if a shofar is stolen? I forget. I think he writes it. I forget what it says. I don't remember. However, the other days of Sukkot, you can use your friends, you can borrow it. Rabbi Yossi Yomer, Yom Tovim Shalchag Shcholius B'Shabbos V'Shachach V'Yitzias Elul B'Shus Ram Patif Neish Yitzir B'Shus. That's very kind of Rabbi Yossi. It says if someone carried on Shabbos his lulav, he forgot that he wasn't allowed to. So because he was involved in a mitzvah, he's exempt from all the punishments of Shabbos. He had good intentions. Rabbi Yossi says, it doesn't have to do with Isaac mitzvah. He says, Ta b'dvar mitzvah v'shagag, you're pater mikarban. Ta b'dvar mitzvah, you were involved in sort of like the Good Samaritan laws. We let it pass. You're trying to do the right thing. Where do you know that you need to own your own lulav? It says you should take it. That means, first of all, that everyone needs to take it, not just like something like the Besdin does or something. Lachem, then it says Lakachtem lachem you. Misha lachem, it has to be yours. This excludes borrowed or stolen. From here the sages said, on the first day of Sukkot, you can't use your friend's lulav unless he gave it to you as a gift. Listen to the story. Sounds like the Seder. It's a story. Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Gamliel is the Nasi. He comes from the line of David. He's the leader of the community. Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Yeshua is Rabbi Yeshua ben Hanania. He's one of the students of Rabbi Yechim Zakkai. He said he was the one that they said Ashri Yeladatai. Remember, praised as his mother. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah was a 10th generation from Ezra Seifer. He was a Kohen, wealthy. He became the Nasi. When Rabbi Gamliel was deposed. Yeah. He had the white beard. Yeah. And Rabbi Akiva. Yeah. So you're born besvina, they're on a boat. The only one that had a lulav was Rabbi Gamliel, and he spent 1,000 zuz on this lulav. So not the Rabbi Gamliel v'yatzabai. Yeah, I saw in the notes in the Steinsaltz that just to set this straight, 1,000 zuz would be about 8 months' salary. Yeah. So he spent his a big portion of his money on this little. Is he married? I don't know. I don't know anything about his wife. I know about his sister. His sister was married to Rabbi Eliezer. It was not mentioned yet. Ema Shalom was her name. He has children, so I assume he's married. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. So Natlu Rabbi Gamliel v'yatzbei Rabbi Gamliel used it. V'naslu Rabbi Yeshua b'matana, and he gives it to Rabbi Yeshua as a gift. Natlu Rabbi Yeshua v'yatzbei. Rabbi Yeshua takes it and he uses it. V'naslu Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah b'matana, he gives it to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah as a gift. Natlu Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah v'yatzbei v'naslu matana Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah used it, he gives it as a gift to Rabbi Akiva. Natlu Rabbi Akiva v'yatzbei v'chsil Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Akiva took it and he returns it to Rabbi Gamliel. The Gemara says, why do you have to tell me about returning it? Say they gave it as a gift. It says, and it's coming to teach us a secondary halacha. It's coming to tell us that it was given as a gift on condition that it be returned. Because Rava says, here's a gift, but you need to give it back. An Indian giver. Yeah, how did that come about? How did that come? Why is that where does that expression come from? Okay. Yeah, it's the Indians are the 10 lost tribes, which people thought they were following this. Okay, so Natlu v'yatza by Echzira yatza la yachzira la yatza. If someone says, here's an esrog, but you have to give it back. It's yours, but you have to give it back. So he takes it to use it. He's only yaitze if he returns it. If he doesn't return it, then it's considered stolen and he wasn't yaitze. Because it was never his. He has to fulfill the condition for it to be his. Yeah, manas. Yeah, what happens if you don't give it back? Then you're not yaitze. On condition.
Did you give somebody with that condition?
So it depends how you view time and how you view the usage of the object. If you view time as segments of time, you had a full gift at that time. It was 100% yours.
Right. Let's say you smash it. And how do you return it?
Yeah, that would be a problem. If it gets ruined, it's a problem. Why does he have to say that Rabbi Gamliel bought it for 1,000 zuz? Is coming to tell us how precious the mitzvahs are to them. Mar bar Amemar says to Ravashi, Abba, my father, Amemar, he would daven holding his lulav. Meisvei, the Gemara has a question. You're not supposed to hold your tefillin in your hand when you're saying Shemona Esrei. You're not supposed to hold the Sefer Torah while you're saying Shemona Esrei. Yeah, is this a din in davening or is this a din in the Sefer Torah? Which one is the? You shouldn't go to the bathroom while you're holding the tefillin or Sefer Torah. Shouldn't go to sleep in them either. And Shmuel says while you're davening, you shouldn't hold these either. So it's a din in davening. It affects your concentration because you shouldn't hold a knife or money or a loaf of bread while you're davening. You have to concentrate on your davening. You can't have packages. The Gemara explains, over here, you're performing a mitzvah, so it doesn't distract you. You see, the general kavanah is that you're in front of Hashem. So when you're doing a mitzvah, you're feeling connected to Hashem. So that's part of the kavanah of davening. But if you're doing other things, you're holding different items that aren't a mitzvah, even if it's a Sefer Torah or tefillin, but it's not the performance of a mitzvah. So then it's a distraction. Tanya, we'll start in the Brisa, Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok Aimer, Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok. This is the son of Rabbi Tzadok. He was the one that passed him. He says, this is the custom of the people of Yerushalayim. A person leaves his house. He's carrying his lulav. He goes to shul, love biyada. He's carrying his lulav. He's saying Shema. He's davening. He's carrying his lulav. He goes to read the Torah. And he does duchening. He puts the lulav down over there. He goes to visit the sick and to comfort the mourners. Yeah, several years ago, my father asked me that the Rambam, father said, the Rambam writes that on Yom Tif they would leave the shul and they would go to comfort the mourners. He says, I thought there's no Nicham Avelim on Yom Tif. That was his question. And it turns out that that's the Mefarshim asked this question. This is based on this Gemara. One of the answers is that it doesn't mean the mitzvah of Nicham Avelim. It meant that they just. It means that they would go to sit with them to comfort, not the mitzvah of Nicham Avelim, but just to be a good friend. You go to comfort them. It's not like, oh, I can't do Nicham Avelim, I'm not going to visit them. No, you do natural things also, as a friendship. So lulav biyadei, but they're still carrying the lulav, right? Nichnas to beis hamedrash, go to the beis hamedrash. Mishagul lulav biyadei, biyad b'noi, biyad avid, biyad shluchim. Then you have to send the lulav home. Send it with your son. Ma'ikam Ashmalan, what's it coming to teach us? Leidiacha kama his reason b'mitzvahs to show us how careful they were with the mitzvahs. Okay. man.
Everybody.
Have a good day.